This is a place for planting, for digging, for harvesting, for relaxing. It's a place to get your hands dirty, but most of all, it's about having fun. And that's what you'll always have when you're in the garden with Doug Oster. You want a green thumb too, don't you? Today's show is all about insects. You've heard me say it before. Love your bugs. And we're going to take a look inside this honeybee hive to see what's going on. A little smoke calms the bees. Now, you've certainly heard of the plight of the honeybee. And one of the reasons that I keep honeybees is to certainly help them do their thing, but they also help me in the garden. One of the things that's important for any beekeeper is to be sure the bees are healthy, and these look great. They are bringing in lots of nectar and pollen. It looks like they're doing their job, and they look to be healthy and happy. And we're just going to close them back up. Meet me out in the garden. We'll take a look at a couple other plants that are great for insects. Well, besides my beloved honeybees, there are lots of other native pollinators out there that we want to help. One thing we're doing is not using any chemicals in the garden, but also planting things that they love. There's Annabelle hydrangea here. We've got phlox in the background. That's the purple plant. And I've left some jewelweed here because the bees just love it. And what is a weed? It's just an unloved flower. And speaking of weeds, we have another plant to look at that the pollinators just love. The common name of this plant is butterfly weed. I think we need to change it to butterfly flower because it is a beauty, it is a native, and not only does it attract all sorts of great native pollinators to the flowers, it also is what we call a host plant, meaning that some of those pollinators can come in here, lay their eggs. When those eggs hatch, they'll eat some of these leaves, and then they'll get the pollen and the nectar in the adult stage from the flowers. This is so easy to grow. And in this week's Everybody Gardens story and Tribune-Review story, it's all about pollinator plants, and there's a variety of this you've got to read about because it's amazing. It's not this beautiful orange, but it's a different color. There are literally thousands of different pollinator plants, but great ones are small flowering herbs like dill and thyme, and this oregano bring in the good bugs. Now, before we start talking about what we can do with the bad bugs, let's take a look around the garden. The seeds we planted last week of beans are up, and so is the lettuce. We've started picking tomatoes. I hope you have too. Bunching onions too. The stargazer lilies are blooming. Gosh, I wish you could smell them. Well, almost all insects in the garden are either good or benign. If we've got some that are slowing down vegetable crops or making ornamentals look bad, or in this case, going to really decimate a tree, we need to deal with it, but we need to deal with it in a way that's safe, that does not disrupt the whole cycle of nature. And so we're just using something that's going to specifically target this pest, and this is hemlock woolly adelgid, and I have it bad. We've had a mild winter, lots of rain, and so a lot of pests are exploding, and if I don't treat these trees, I could possibly lose them. And I'm using something called horticultural oil, and I've mixed it with water at the right ratio, and we're just going to basically suffocate these insects by spraying them, and this is going to have to be done probably once every couple weeks. And I've got 40 trees to do, so when I'm done with this, I want to show you a couple other ways to deal with pests safely and without disrupting that cycle of nature. You really need to make sure that you're covering the insect, soaking it. So here's a couple other organic controls for pests without disrupting the whole cycle of nature. This is insecticidal soap. Works basically like the horticultural oil. It's for whiteflies, aphids, spider mites, things like that. But for chewing insects like cabbage worms and Japanese beetles, this Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew is what you use. It has an active ingredient called spinosad, which the bugs will eat that can't hurt us and can't hurt the good bugs. All right, one more thing to take a look at, and that's dealing with mosquitoes organically. So the number one rule for dealing with mosquitoes organically is get rid of any standing water, whether it's in the gutters or a bucket, wherever it might be. You can't, in the case of this fountain, we use these things called mosquito dunks, and they're completely safe for us. They only affect the mosquito larvae, and again, it's an organic control, which is great. Now, for more information about everything we talked about today, check me out online. That's where you can read about pollinator plants and lots of other things gardening, and join my Seed of the Month Club. Now, until next week, I'm just going to go out and sit in the garden and watch the good bugs do their thing. We'll see you then.
Yes, cities, nations, even civilization itself, threatened with annihilation, because in one moment of history-making violence, nature, mad, rampant, wrought its most awesome creation. For born in that swirling inferno of radioactive dust were things so horrible, so terrifying, so hideous. There is no word to describe them.
Sure there is. They're just butterflies.
We may be witnesses to a biblical prophecy come true, and there shall be destruction and darkness come up in creation, and the beast shall reign over the earth.
But they're just butterflies.
I tell you, gentlemen, science has agreed that unless something is done and done quickly, man, as the dominant species of life on Earth, will be extinct within a year.
But they're just butterflies.